Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India, India's voice to the world. I'm Tanvi Taneja. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives in Greece on a day-long visit, greeted by Indian diaspora. Former US President Donald Trump surrenders in Georgia election case as part of a wide-ranging criminal probe relating to his 2020 election defeat. The United States will start training Ukrainian pilots on operating F-16 fighter jets from next month. And at the World Badminton Championships, Indian duo Satvik Sairaj Rankireddy and Chirag Shetty progress to the quarterfinals. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has arrived in Greece for a day-long visit. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will lay a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier in some time from now. PM Modi is also scheduled to meet the President of Greece and hold talks with the Greek Prime Minister, Kyriakos Mitsotakis. After arrival at Athens, Indian Prime Minister reached Hotel Grande Brutanier. People of Indian origin accorded a grand welcome to him. Indian diaspora from all walks of life came in large numbers to welcome their Premier, PM Modi. Next, updates on India's G20 presidency. Foreign delegates were in for a visual delight at the historic Amer Fort in the Pink City, Jaipur of India. Playing to the tunes of the Thar Desert mixed with modern music, the delegates of G20 enjoyed the musical treat at the fort, which signifies the Rajput architecture and grandeur of the Kachava dynasty. So the grandeur and colours of Indian culture at display at the Amer Fort in Jaipur. Moving on, now in international updates, Niger has authorized Mali and Burkina Faso's military forces to intervene on its territory in the event of an attack, which may be a hint that the junta in Niger intends to continue defying regional calls to step down. The three allies' foreign ministers said they had met in the Nigerian capital, Niamey, to discuss boosting cooperation on security and other joint issues on Thursday. The West African bloc, ECOWAS, has warned that it is ready to send troops into Niger to restore constitutional order if diplomatic efforts fail. The bloc has been trying to negotiate with the coup leaders. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said at the BRICS summit in South Africa on Thursday that a military intervention by other states in Niger following last month's coup would benefit no one. On to America. A popular California shopping mall was evacuated after a possible bomb threat linked to a toilet left outside a movie theater. Police evacuated the Americana at Brand Mall in Glendale after a note claiming that the toilet was the place where a bomb was found. Local authorities are investigating the device for a possible bomb. No confirmation on the status of the object has yet been released by authorities. Now, the U.S. Weather Department has issued a red flag warning for wildfires in the Pacific Northwestern state of Oregon. The warning means that certain weather conditions may fuel the risk of fire. Satellite images show smoke from Oregon's wildfires near Portland. Let's now take a look at other stories making news across the world. So, officials in Costa Rica have seized a boat carrying 2.2 tons of cocaine. The vessel has been intercepted at sea and 200 kilometers from the Costa Rican coast. The country's police have arrested 3 people with drugs, including 2 Ecuadorians and 1 Colombian. Venezuela's National Assembly has named ruling Socialist Party loyalist Elvis Amoroso as the head of the country's highest electoral authority. Amoroso previously served as Controller General of Venezuela and oversaw the use of public funds. Amoroso's nomination comes as the US has said it is ready to ease sanctions against Venezuela, but only if President Nicolas Maduro takes concrete steps towards free elections. Mass protests on the streets of Argentinian capital Buenos Aires are seen, with thousands of people demanding government support amid a deepening economic crisis ahead of the October general election. Demonstrators were seen waving flags and banners calling for more resources for social welfare programs. The recent sharp devaluation of the Argentine currency has increased inflation, causing anger and frustration in the South American country. Firefighting operations are in full swing in British Columbia as Canada's severe wildfire season continues. Already, more than 50,000 people have been forced to evacuate their homes as emergency teams try and stop the spread of flames by digging trenches and water bombing. Still to come on DD India Live. The United States of America will start training Ukrainian pilots on F-16 fighter jets. And Japan's discharge of treated water from a nuclear plant into the ocean continues to upset its neighbors.
Wherever news breaks, whatever it takes.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour, from sports to world affairs, with a fusion of aesthetics and substance. Introducing news in a new avatar. Experience the world through a new lens. Stay tuned to DD India for an exciting journey beyond borders.
20,000
10
ओके
दोनों
नो 10 का 1
इतना कैश नहीं है।
कोई बात नहीं, हम यूपीआई भी लेते हैं।
मेरा पेमेंट ऐप अलग है।
कहीं जूते वापस मिलने की जगह जूते पड़ न जाए। ऐप दूसरा हो या तीसरा, चाहिए बस यूपीआई। आपका मोबाइल नंबर ही बन सकता है आपका यूपीआई नंबर, और अब किसी भी पेमेंट ऐप से कोई भी पेमेंट ऐप पर यूपीआई चलेगा।
Welcome back. You're with us on DD India Live. I'm Tanvi Taneja. For the first time in history, a former US president has had his mugshot taken. Donald Trump surrendered on Thursday at a Georgia jail on charges of racketeering and conspiracy. Later, he posted a $200,000 bond and was released.
Donald Trump was charged on Thursday with more than a dozen felonies as part of complex criminal case arising from his efforts to overturn his Georgia loss in the 2020 presidential race. After his surrender, Trump was arrested and jail authorities took a mugshot of Trump. His mugshot was made public by Fulton County Jail after his arrest. Later, former president was released on bail. The $200,000 bond package includes standard provisions barring him from making direct or indirect threats against witnesses. Dozens of Trump supporters gathered outside the Atlanta jail. Before boarding his private plane after the booking, Trump repeated his claim that the various criminal cases against him are politically motivated.
I really believe this is a very sad day for America. This should never happen. If you challenge an election, you should be able to challenge an election. I thought the election was a rigged election, a stolen election, and I should have every right to do that. As you know, you have many people that you've been watching over the years do the same thing, whether it's Hillary Clinton or Stacey Abrams or many others. When you have that great freedom to challenge, you have to be able to, otherwise you're going to have very dishonest elections. What has taken place here is a travesty of justice. We did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. And everybody knows it. I've never had such support. And that goes with the other ones too. What they're doing is election interference. They're trying to interfere with an election. There's never been anything like it in our country before.
With Justice Department officials.
Fannie Willis, the Fulton County District Attorney who filed the sweeping racketeering case, had set a deadline of Friday for Trump and the other 18 defendants to surrender. Trump and 11 others have turned themselves in so far.
Donald Trump now has returned to social media site X, formerly known as Twitter, with a post on Thursday showing his mugshot from his booking earlier in the day. With his post, he appealed for donations.
Well, Donald Trump's mugshot is currently making its way around the world as we process this historic and unprecedented situation in the U.S. state of Georgia. And the next step for Trump and his 18 co-defendants is to actually be arraigned and enter a plea on these charges, and we expect that to happen likely the week after next. Now, the actual trial date is a bit unclear. The Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis had initially proposed a date of March 4th, which would actually be the day before Super Tuesday, which is the biggest day in the party's presidential nominating process. However, then one of Trump's co-defendants earlier asked for his trial date to be moved up to October 23rd. He has the right to request a speedy trial. So that was granted by the judge. The district attorney had initially wanted to charge Trump and the co-defendants at the same time. So we'll see how that plays out. Another option that could happen here is some of those co-defendants are trying to have the case moved to a federal court. So if that were to happen, and if Trump's case were to be moved, then the timeline from the state court would essentially become moot. Former U.S. president has shown a remarkable resilience so far to taking any sort of damage so far in the Republican nominating process from all of these legal entanglements. Back in February, before he was indicted for the first time, Trump was actually just leading Florida Governor Ron DeSantis in the Republican nomination poll by just a couple percentage points. Well, fast forward to the summer, where now Trump has been indicted 4 times on numerous felony charges, and Trump is actually leading the field by more than 40%. So these charges have clearly not hurt him in any meaningful way to try and achieve his party's nomination for the presidency. Now, certainly new details could come out as these legal cases proceed, but right now, at least the will of the Republican voters appears to be that they do support Trump despite all of these legal problems that he faces.
On to Southeast Asia now. Japan's discharge of radioactive water into the Pacific Ocean continues to upset its neighbors. China has banned the import of seafood, and there have been protests in Hong Kong, a rare occurrence since Beijing cracked down on dissent in the city. Our correspondent Andrew Wood has more from Hong Kong.
Well, no matter what Tokyo says about the safety of the discharges of this radioactive water, nobody in the region, very few people in the region, seem to be prepared to accept Tokyo's assurances that the discharge is safe. Tokyo seems to be losing an awful lot of friends around the region by doing this. Here in Hong Kong, there were small protests close to the Japanese consulate. In South Korea, about 16 protesters tried to break into the Japanese embassy. We've seen China ban all imports of Japanese seafood and said that it was Japan was selfish and irresponsible by discharging this water. The ban here in Hong Kong actually came into effect before Japan actually started to release the water into the sea. Now, this is quite a big blow economically for Japan, because the mainland of China and Hong Kong are the two biggest markets for Japanese seafood and agricultural exports. Here in Hong Kong, for example, sales are usually around about $500 million a year of seafood, seaweed and other aquatic products. North Korea has weighed in as well. Now, there's not really a lot of love lost between North Korea and Japan, but North Korea was saying, well, this was a crime against humanity. So, no matter what the scientific evidence says, Tokyo has really failed to win over so many people around the region. That can't be good for its soft power. And yes, Japan is going to lose an awful lot of friends by doing this. In Hong Kong, I'm Andrew Wood reporting for DD India.
Next, updates from the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The United States top general Mark Milley has said that Ukraine was likely to get F-16 fighter jets soon. He added, its counteroffensive against the Russian invasion has been going slowly and has had partial success. He also said Ukrainian forces are being trained intensively in various parts of Europe. Earlier, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that he had received pledges from Denmark and the Netherlands to deliver F-16 fighter jets.
The F-16s, that is moving forward, actually. So there's a training program in place, and they'll likely to receive F-16s here in the not too distant future. The Ukrainians have a significant amount of combat power remaining. This is not over yet. So I think it's frankly too early to say whether it succeeded or failed. It clearly has had partial success to date. Now, the speed at which the offensive is being undertaken is slower than the planners had thought.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has sent his condolences to the family of Wagner chief Yevgeny Prigozhin, breaking his silence after the mercenary leader's plane crashed, leaving no survivors, 2 months after he led a mutiny against the Russian government.
As for the aviation tragedy, first of all, I want to express my sincerest condolences to the families of all the victims. It is always a tragedy. Indeed, if there were, and the primary data indicate that there were employees of the Wagner PMC, I would want to note that these people made a significant contribution to our common cause of fighting the neo-Nazi regime in Ukraine. We will remember this, we know it, and we will not forget it.
Meanwhile, flight operations at 2 major airports in the Russian capital Moscow were suspended early on Friday after reports of explosions. It comes after residents of the Russian regions of Tula and Kaluga reported hearing explosions in the night. Earlier this week, flights were briefly disrupted following alleged Ukrainian drone attacks. Ukraine has marked its 32nd Independence Day, with other nations recognizing the event. In Paris, the Eiffel Tower was lit up in the colors of Ukraine's national flag. Ukraine declared independence from the Soviet Union back in 1991. The U.S. State Department imposed sanctions on 13 people and entities on Thursday. The United States said that the sanctioned entities were reportedly connected to the forced deportation and transfer of Ukraine's children. The State Department adds that the U.S. is also taking steps to impose visa restrictions on 3 Russian-installed purported authorities over their involvement in human rights abuses of Ukrainian minors. Ukraine's government estimates that the Russian authorities have deported over 19,500 children since the beginning of the Russia-Ukraine war.
let's be clear. Russia has zero legitimate reason to suspend its participation in this arrangement. They would have you believe that sanctions have blocked their exports. That couldn't be further from the truth. They were exporting more grains than ever before and at higher prices. Russia is simply using the Black Sea as blackmail. It's playing political games. It's holding humanity hostage.
More on the story of Ukrainian pilots who will receive F-16 training in the US. The United States has said that it will begin flight training for Ukrainian pilots on F-16 fighter jets in October. Pentagon spokesman Brigadier General Pat Ryder said that the training will begin in Arizona after the pilots receive English language training next month.
The Department of Defense is announcing today that the United States will soon begin training Ukrainians to fly and maintain F-16 fighter aircraft in support of the international effort to develop and strengthen Ukraine's long-term defenses. Following English language training for pilots in September, F-16 flying training is expected to begin in October at Morris Air National Guard Base in Tucson, Arizona, facilitated by the Air National Guard's 162nd Wing.
Now, one of the world's busiest shipping lanes, the Panama Canal that links the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans, is expected to extend restrictions on daily ship transit. The restrictions have been imposed amid a prolonged drought, shrinking the canal's water level. The restrictions have caused a huge backlog of ships waiting to pass through. The restrictions have also forced ship owners to lighten cargo or shift to alternative routes. This has caused freight costs to surge. Officials say the extension of the restrictions will give the canal room to conserve water ahead of the next rainy season. But the move is believed to cause major logjams. On to the Middle East now. Kuwait hosted first Indian ministerial delegation in 2 years, cementing relations between both the countries. Indian Minister of State for External Affairs V. Muralidharan paid an official visit to the state of Kuwait on August 23rd and 24th. During the visit, Muralidharan met key ministers and held bilateral talks and explored avenues for collaboration across various sectors. A focal point of the discussions was the determination on both sides to enhance economic partnership. Both delegations expressed keen interest in diversifying bilateral trade and fostering increased bilateral investments. The United Arab Emirates, UAE's Bank of Baroda, is commemorating its Golden Jubilee, marking 50 years in the United Arab Emirates. Established in 1974, the bank has emerged as a premier provider of financial solutions to both the Indian diaspora and locals there. Indian ambassador to the UAE, Sanjay Sudhir, said that the bank has played an instrumental role in the past 9 years, elevating the India-UAE relationship, while the introduction of the rupee-dirham trade has further cemented economic ties between the two countries.
Groundwork has all been done on linking UPI, and once that happens, it will be a big thing. In fact, the German Minister for Digital Technology was in India, and he made a UPI transaction buying vegetables. We already have this UPI understanding with France. Now, the point is that UPI, the so-called digital, the fintech digital stack is a stack where India has taken a global lead. So the Western world has as much interest as any one of us.
Some more updates on India's G20 presidency. India's Minister of State for External Affairs and Culture, Meenakshi Lekhi, addressed the 4th G20 Culture Working Group meeting under India's presidency in Varanasi on Thursday. Now let's take a look at other stories making news in India. India's northeastern state of Assam has banned the sale, use, manufacture and distribution of plastic water bottles of less than 1000 ml capacity in the state. The move aims to protect and improve the environment. This ban will be applicable from October 2nd this year. The Indian state of Himachal Pradesh continues to reel under heavy rainfall. The Indian Weather Department has issued a yellow alert for the state on Friday. Heavy rains in the state have triggered landslides and damaged several properties. Rescue operations are underway. The three-day B20 Summit India 2023 has begun in New Delhi on Friday. Trade ministers and business leaders from several countries are participating in the summit. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will attend the special session on the concluding day, that is on Sunday. Moving on, now sports news. An Indian badminton duo have progressed to the quarter-final round at the World Badminton Championships. Satvik Sairaj Rankireddy and Chirag Shetty beat Leo Rollet and Danielle Martin 15-21, 21-19, 9-21 to set up the next round clash with Denmark's Kim Astrup and Anders Karup. In men's singles, HS Pranoy is set to face Olympic champion Victor Axelsen in the quarters. Now, Chandrayaan 3 is making a lot of news across the world. Now, Indian Space Agency, ISRO, has released a new video on how the Chandrayaan 3's rover ramped down from the lander Vikram to the lunar surface. Take a look at this video. So that's it in this bulletin, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. But before we go, we leave you with the visuals coming from United Kingdom, where it's time for the annual weigh-in at the London Zoo. As you see these visuals, we wrap up this bulletin. Thank you for being with us. Namaskar.